The world we live in today was shaped by a handful of extraordinary minds, and one of them changed the way we use technology forever. Computers, smartphones, and digital creativity. So many of these breakthroughs were pushed forward by the vision of one single man. But the story of this incredible revolution did not begin inside a giant corporation or a fancy research lab. It began in a garage. It began with a young dreamer from California who truly believed that technology had the power to change the entire world. His name was Steve Jobs, and from a very early age, he was completely fascinated by how machines and electronics worked. While other kids played sports and watched television, young Steve spent hours taking apart radios and gadgets, trying to understand every single piece inside. He read every book about technology and electronics he could find. Night after night, he studied how circuits and computers operated, teaching himself everything from scratch. And deep inside, he already believed that computers could become personal tools for everyone, not just scientists and big companies. Together with his brilliant friend Steve Wozniak, he began experimenting in a small, cluttered garage in California, building something that had never existed before. They shared one powerful dream: to build a computer that ordinary people, with no technical knowledge at all, could actually use in their own homes. That small, messy garage soon became the birthplace of one of the most important companies in history. They called it Apple. Their very first computers were rough and simple, held together with wires and solder. But the revolutionary idea behind them was worth more than any polished design. For the very first time, computers started moving out of laboratories and research centers and into the living rooms of everyday people around the country.
It finally runs at full speed.
Apple quickly began attracting attention from investors, engineers, and tech enthusiasts who realized that something truly special was happening inside that tiny garage. Steve Jobs had a rare and extraordinary ability. He could imagine products that people did not even know they needed, and then convince them they could not live without them. His deep passion for beautiful design and radical simplicity became Apple's signature. Every product had to look perfect, feel perfect, and work perfectly. As the company grew bigger and bigger, so did Steve's ambition. He was no longer satisfied with making good computers. He wanted to make the best computers the world had ever seen. He wanted every single computer Apple built to be powerful, beautiful, and so intuitive that anyone could pick it up and start using it immediately, without reading a single manual. Soon, Apple was launching revolutionary products that completely changed the way millions of people interacted with technology in their daily lives. The entire world began to notice the rise of a bold new leader in the technology industry. Steve Jobs was becoming a legend. But the road to greatness was not always smooth. Behind the scenes, serious conflicts were quietly building inside Apple's own walls. Disagreements over the company's direction grew deeper and more bitter. Boardroom tensions reached a breaking point that nobody saw coming.
The numbers do not lie.
And then the unthinkable happened. Steve Jobs was forced out of Apple, the very company he had helped create with his own two hands. For most people, being pushed out of their own company would have been a devastating, career-ending blow. It would have been the final chapter. But Steve Jobs was not most people. Instead of giving up, he took a deep breath, picked himself up, and decided this was only the beginning of a brand new chapter. He founded a new company called Next, pouring all of his energy, experience, and creative vision into building something even more ambitious than before. And at the very same time, he made another bold move. He invested in a small, struggling animation studio that almost nobody had heard of. It was called Pixar. That tiny studio, fueled by Steve's support and vision, would go on to completely revolutionize the entire world of animated filmmaking and storytelling. Meanwhile, back at Apple, things were falling apart. Without its visionary founder, the company was losing direction, losing money, and slowly fading into irrelevance. Apple desperately needed bold, fearless leadership again. And everyone knew there was only one person on Earth who could save it. And so, in one of the greatest comeback stories in business history, the very man they once pushed out was invited back to lead the company he had built. Steve Jobs returned to Apple with a powerful new vision and a burning determination. He knew exactly what needed to change, and he was ready to rebuild everything from the ground up. He ruthlessly simplified Apple's product line, cutting dozens of confusing products and focusing the entire company on just a few truly great innovations. And soon, Apple released something the world had never seen before. Beautiful, colorful, translucent computers that captured people's hearts and imaginations instantly. Then came a product that changed absolutely everything. A small white device called the iPod, which could hold 1,000 songs right in your pocket. Suddenly, for the very first time, music, technology, and beautiful design all came together perfectly in one single, elegant little device. But Steve Jobs was far from finished. He had one more revolutionary idea burning inside him, an idea that would change the entire world forever. In January 2007, Steve Jobs walked onto a dark stage, paused, looked at the audience, and revealed something nobody expected: the iPhone. A phone, an iPod, and an internet device, all in one. The crowd erupted. Camera flashes lit up the entire auditorium like a storm of lightning. That single moment completely and permanently changed the smartphone industry and the way billions of people communicate, work, and live their daily lives. Within just a few years, hundreds of millions of people around the world were carrying iPhones in their pockets, connected like never before in human history. Apple became one of the most valuable and admired companies the world has ever known, all built on one man's relentless pursuit of perfection and simplicity. Steve Jobs proved something profound. He showed the world that technology does not have to be cold and complicated. It can also be beautiful. It can be art. His extraordinary vision inspired an entire new generation of designers, engineers, and entrepreneurs to think differently and to never settle for anything less than greatness. Even today, years after his passing, Steve Jobs' ideas and philosophy continue to shape and influence the technology we use every single day. Designers, engineers, and entrepreneurs all over the world still study his work, his speeches, and his way of thinking, searching for the same magic he brought to everything he touched. Because Steve Jobs proved once and for all that imagination, determination, and an obsession with perfection can truly reshape the future of the entire world. And his legacy reminds us all that the next great innovation, the next world-changing idea, might just start with a single spark of imagination in a young dreamer's mind.